Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. So happy to have some time with you today. It is Thursday, and for our regulars, you know that Thursday is the day that we share the mic now on YWTV with Black women in our community to amplify their voices. And it's been always so many great conversations that I've had, hundreds of them at this point. Over this last year plus that we've been doing this. And I start each Thursday saying, and I'm so excited for this one, and I really always am, and because I usually know the folks that we are talking with, and I'm so excited to introduce them to you. And so I'm so excited for this one. I'm saying it again today. It is my great pleasure to share with all of you and meet further myself as well, the wonderful Lola Gayle. Welcome, Lola. Thank you for joining us today.
Helen, thank you so much for having me. You are such a breath of more than fresh air, I'll tell you. Thank you.
Well, you're sweet. There's a lot of fresh air out here. I'm sitting outside, so I'm blowing in the wind today. For all of you. And actually, my t-shirt says "You've got a friend" on it. And I wore it specifically because Lola and I met recently, and she's a new friend. But I know that this happens for many of us, that you meet someone and you just like immediately feel, a bond. And she came to me through another person who I felt that kind of bond with, Shalisa McNeil, who you all have all met, who came to me from another person who I felt that bond with, June Smith, who I immediately felt. So, I mean, talk about a chain link and chain reaction of just like friendship, love, and joy. I mean, everyone that I've met through this circle has really just been such a gift to me. So again, I'm just thrilled to get to share that gift with all of you today. So let me tell you a little bit about Lola before we jump into chatting with her. She is an unapologetic idealist. She is a native of Barbados, and she has a postgraduate degree from New York University and Smith College. She is a business consultant and was the co-owner of Lola's Restaurant with her husband. Prior to operating Lola's full-time, she had a whole, as many of us, right? She had a whole nother life. She was vice president and senior human resources business partner for JP Morgan Chase, with direct responsibility for more than 1,000 employees globally, managing budgets for over $50 million. Among her many accomplishments, Lola was listed as one of the women changing the world by Essence magazine. She's traveled to Ethiopia, Tanzania, as a U.S. delegate and guest of the Sullivan Foundation, and has been a keynote speaker for NYC universities and organizations. She was recently recognized by Bronx Connect with the Icons and Innovators for Social Justice. And she's just lovely and seasoned professional, and, has had such a tremendous life experience. And so we're so grateful. And she has, I have to tell you, you guys can see a little bit of background, an absolutely stunning place where she gets to live each day, with beautiful green walls and beautiful art. I love the Gustav Klimt, the kiss you have right behind you. It was breathtaking when I walked in and got to see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for that wonderfully kind introduction. I so appreciate you.
You've done it all. I mean, I'm just sharing your story. So how does that feel to hear it all like that?
It's so funny because my son said to me the other day, so this is really great context. He said, "Mom, I don't know why you try so hard, why you keep busting your butt." He goes, "You've already done enough. You can rest."
Yeah.
And I most certainly cannot, because all of that stuff is just has in my mind really been preparation. It's interesting because I really felt that I was going to retire from corporate America, but the universe had other plans. And whether or not we are connected in with what is actually happening outside of our lives, I do believe that there's a greater plan in play.
Mhm.
And a lot of the things that happened to me, um, while some of them it's pretty devastating stuff, I can look back at the time. I really didn't know how I was going to overcome all of it. You know, I went into depression. There was so much sadness. I couldn't see my way out, but I have a vision now for, you know, the things that I want to do. And so I wake up now each morning with a great deal of gratitude for the life that I've had, because it's been great preparation for what's to come.
Well, and you know, I'm so grateful that you're taking some time to share it, because we know that so many people, so many women, and so many Black women in particular, you know, end up feeling those depths of despair, but don't necessarily feel, and this happens to be a suicide prevention month also that we're talking in, right? But people don't
Yes.
always feel that there is a light coming. You know, they just feel that heaviness and that darkness that they're currently in. And so it's wonderful when people are able to share their stories, so people can see that, you know, there is a, you know, a morning after, you know, if you can get there.
Absolutely.
You know, for sure, with whatever circle and resources and, you know, prayer and whatever it is that each of us, you know, need to do to get there. So with that, I want to start and ask, I mean, you had a huge position in corporate America. I mean, first of all, that's not a position you see a lot of women in. And it's not a position you see a lot of, you know, non-white women in, Black women in also. You know, how did you get there? And, you know, what was it like being in that role in an environment where you were, you know, definitely, you know, not, when you looked around, you know, everyone looking like you?
I think it's helpful. It was helpful for me being an immigrant, right? So, coming from the island of Barbados, I grew up with people of color being on the money and running the country, and the police were of color. And when I turned on the news, I didn't hear a lot of negativity about people of color. So, and I had a mother who always reminded me that nobody was better than me. And so, but I loved books. And at the end of the day, I was completely sold, based on my upbringing, that we are all the same people. The only thing that separates any of us is knowledge. So I never looked at people as anybody as being better than anyone else. And I think that's very helpful, because as I look out around me and I see what takes a hold of people, to a large degree, a lot of it is because people amplify voices and people who are not deserving, simply because of a financial and a power construct, right? And that makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yes. Well,
And so at JP Morgan, I grew up in corporate America. I started in corporate America when I was in my very early 20s, and I learned a lot. They actually sent me to NYU. And so my education grew through corporate America, and my career, I started out in human resources and grew from the bottom up. And so I learned a lot. I was able to impact a lot because with the spirit and personality that I have, if I see something, I am going to speak to it. That's just who I am. And going to school in corporate America, I learned a lot through education. And I would oftentimes sort of bring that back, because I'm sort of hovering above things and looking down at them, not necessarily to look at them from the perspective of what's wrong necessarily, but you see what's wrong and what needs to be fixed if you're always that outsider looking at things from that place. And so there were lots of programs and policies that I was able to impact within the firm. And as a result of this outgoing personality that I had, and seemingly fearless, though I was deathly afraid. I was privileged to work for people who I could sort of confront. I could sit with them and talk to them about what I was feeling inside. I had a boss, in particular, her name was Jane McDaisy, and Jane was tremendous. I remember going to her in my very early 20s and saying to her, Jane, I'm so scared. And she wanted me to go present some programs that I had come up with to the senior team. And I told her I was terrified. And she said, everybody's terrified. It's just all about doing it, like acknowledging that you're scared and doing it anyway. Yeah. That's the thing. And Jane remained that person throughout my the early stages of my career. And having that kind of boss motivated me to become that kind of boss as well. Encouraging, leading with empathy, very, very important to me.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow, you said so much in what you just shared. I'm just thinking about a couple things. One, what you ended with was just very powerful too. I mean, it just really speaks to the importance of mentorship and sponsorship and the support of someone believing in us around us. And what you just shared about being scared. We were talking about anxiety before we went live too. Yes. About kind of feeling that Facebook Live. I mean, we're talking and people are listening. Overcoming that and acknowledging it and having the resources and the tools, because the reality of it is everyone feels it on some level. There's really nobody's fearless. Nobody's truly fearless in every situation, no matter what anyone would put out there.
Would have you believe.
Right.
It's very, very true.
Right.
And so when and as a young woman of color, there are macro and microaggressions that you deal with in the workplace. I remembered when I was a little girl growing up, seeing even my Black teachers treat the white girls differently. And I would talk to my dad about that. And he told me all about, my father was a merchant seaman. And so he talked to me a great deal about going to South Africa and what that looked like. And we thought those people were crazy. Right. Yeah. So I never really quite understood this idea of white supremacy and what that meant. And so coming into a corporate space and being the woman that I was, there were the aggressions, little things that you get. Oh, she speaks so well. Oh, my goodness, did you write this? This is amazing. And challenging whether or not I could take on a particular role. There are lots of little things that happened, but you learn to compartmentalize these things and really not take it on until, and of course, as an HR business partner, the more my role grew, I'm dealing with issues that other employees have around racism and the like. And so I have to participate in investigations and such. And so when it actually happened to me at the very end of my career, I was working for a guy who was going to be the head of HR for the firm. And there were some issues that came up, not with him directly, but indirectly. And he did not support me in the way that I needed to be supported. And it was through that prism that I made a decision to leave the firm. And we were able to negotiate my departure. So I didn't have to leave with nothing in my hands. And so I was able to do that and transitioned into working with my husband in the restaurant industry. So there was a lot that I was bringing to the table, certainly, but there was also a lot for me to learn. And he had a restaurant that had a pretty long history in Soho called Lola. And we were on 22nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenues, a beautiful, vibrant, wonderful space. And I was really able to lend some value there. And I learned a lot from him and just taking on certain responsibilities in the space. Our lease came to an end in 2004. And we made a decision to move to Soho because Soho is a great arts district, and the restaurant has a large stage. They do live music, started gospel brunches in Manhattan, had a pretty big international reputation, showcased in movies like The Best Man and Brown Sugar. It was really a vibrant and exciting space. And my husband was and tried really hard to be a very good teacher to me. And so we found a place in Soho and began the process. The landlord loved us, and it was a build out, something that I would never do again in my entire life. Never happens, it would never happen again. So that was a build out, and we went before the business arm of the community board, and they welcomed us with open arms, voted for us unanimously, but with a caution that there may be some people in the neighborhood, or actually neighbor right across the street, who may have some issue with us being in that particular location because of the fact that we were a live music venue. We said, fine, we would have engage her as much as we could. Now after the business arm of the community board approved us, we can go ahead, because it is unknown in New York City for the business arm of a community board to approve an application for a new liquor license unanimously, and then it just goes away. That doesn't happen. And so we proceeded and began construction, and we're on a timeline, and the big posters go up of me and our dogs and my husband, and we're announcing the fact that we're coming to Soho and what we're going to be doing there. We were also very excited, and that's when, after the posters went up, the following, I think 2 days after, flyers go up in Soho warning the residents that we are coming into Soho, that we were going to devalue properties and bring more crime, more garbage, a whole bunch of stuff. And I got a phone call from a guy, Sean Sweeney, who was the head of the Soho Alliance in Soho. And also he ran the Downtown Democratic Party in Soho, and also sat on the community board. Lots of influence on the community board from politics and the like, and but mostly special interest, right? And so Sean did not tell me that there was a woman on the phone. He tells me that he can't have the meeting that I wanted to have with this neighbor, and I asked him why, and there's a woman who speaks up, and she says, because I don't want you here, that's why. I don't know who you think you are, pack your bags and leave, that kind of language. She was going to hire a lawyer. The lawyer had never lost a case, so I should just give up. And I told her that she should look forward to engaging with me in battle in court if that was the direction that she wanted to go in, because I thought it was ludicrous. The next day we come into Soho, and that's when we saw all the flyers warning the residents about us. And they engaged us in a battle that lasted 4.5 years, a case that went from the New York Supreme Court to the New York Appellate Division. They engaged a senator, a councilwoman, and other people whose campaigns they had gotten behind financially. And these people just capitulated, these politicians capitulated to them simply because of relationship. We were able to move through all of that, eventually winning the case at the appellate level. We got our liquor license. They continued the interference. They continued that with at the Department of Buildings. It was a holy nightmare. It was one of the worst things that you could go through. And I think part of what was happening to me at the time that I wasn't even present to was the fact that I was perimenopausal, right? And so I'm perimenopausal, I'm going through all of this stuff. And we fought till the bitter end. And eventually we won the battle, but we lost the war because we had to close our doors in 2009. And with that, all the money, so much money had already been spent. We had an investor, but I spent a lot of money personally as well and lost all of it. And with that lost, the opportunity to sort of recoup anything as well, right, with the business. And that's when at first, I didn't acknowledge all of what was happening. It's kind of like you're taking it in stride because every day is a battle. Every day is a battle. And then when finally you've lost the battle, you think, okay, well, what next? Because I'm in what they say about a body in motion.
Yes, yes. I mean, you're in that fight mode.
Yes, you're actually in motion. So you're really not taking the time to think about the impact of these things on your body, on your spirit, on your soul. And so when I stopped, that's when I got hit with, oh my God, this is what's actually happened. And it was 2009, and we were in the middle of a financial meltdown in the country. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be stopped. I can get a job. Don't blow away, Helen.
It's a little windy out here. I'm trying to anchor. Good. Keep going.
And so I was determined that I could, sort of just get back to corporate, and started an interview process. I would get a few interviews, only constantly to be told how overqualified I was. And it just tore me apart because I was willing to take less. I didn't have to make six figures, right? That was all going to be fine as long as I could be a contributor in my home and that's who I always was. Mm-hmm. And so in my own life, on a very personal level, I've always worked, I've always made money, and I was always able to control my own life, and I felt my own destiny. And then all of that was taken from me. And so I became suicidal. I wouldn't get out of bed. I actually made the smoothie and got ready to drink it. And I saw my son's face. And as I put that drink to my lips, I saw my son's face. And I knew, without much thought to it, instantly, it was, my son would not make it if I did this. He would not. And I understood that viscerally. And so I was determined to not take that route. And then in 2012, my grandson came into my life. And literally, he gave me a sense of purpose. He was such a beautiful baby. I'm sorry. No. He was such a beautiful baby. And he still is a beautiful boy, and he means the world to me. And he was my reason for going on, and I wanted to get excited around him. And when his mom went back to work, he was so beautiful that I immediately looked at him and said, we're going to get him into modeling. And his mom reluctantly agreed, but she agreed. And we started going to work every week. We would go to work. He worked almost every day. He worked for everyone because he looks like everyone. You look at this kid and you just don't know what he is. It's like, who is he? Is he Indian? Is he Asian? Is he black? Is he, what is he? He's all mixed up. And the real power of what diversity can look like is encompassed in this little man. And so grateful for him. And I started creating again. I also, outside of my grandson, I started thinking about these issues that the country was going through with race, Barack Obama's presidency. And I think I've always looked at white supremacy as sort of, it's a joke, right? It's not real. And so I try to look at it with empathy. I think we sort of have to look to try to understand our humanity. And I was doing a lot of that on my own because therapy was becoming important to kind of help me through the emotional place that I was in. And I was reading a whole lot more about what it means to be human and understanding that from a sociological perspective. Very, very important. And coupling all of that with everything I learned at JP Morgan. And so, and they're very focused on developing their HR people and, developing their people in general terms for the firm. It's a very competitive space. And so I wanted to, having this stint in hospitality, I began to think about how I could combine these two spaces, being an HR business partner and being a restaurateur and operating in a social environment. I saw many opportunities, again, still constantly that person looking at things from above and trying to figure out how I can make them better. And so I began to think there's something that we can do with programming in a social environment, because I'd always loved the idea of Oslo and the peace talks and what happened there, and that they were able, great facilitators were able to move some of the key people, the heads of those countries at that time, put them into another environment, introduce food and alcohol and all of these things. And what happened as a result? It didn't last, but it happened, right? So that was the first time in history that there had been such success. And so I know that environment matters, and everything that flows into that environment, I know that it can help a change management process along. And I began to think about what that would look like in a restaurant setting. And it took a very long time to build on an idea that was percolating in my head and to try to put that down on paper. I began to understand the pressure that entrepreneurs go through who have big ideas, and the power to be able to articulate that. You're operating by yourself. You don't have a lot of help around you. And I got that idea down on paper eventually, and I was able to share it. And people would say to me, "What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? Do you want to make money or do you want to help people?" And I thought, why can't we do both? I believe that there is a space between altruism and profit. And I believe that if we can infect and interject, infect these spaces with love as as sort of like the guiding star, it's like the whole idea of capitalism. Capitalism comes from a white supremacist construct,
Right.
but it doesn't have, like racism does as well, of course, but it doesn't have responsibility baked into it. It doesn't have love baked into it. And I think that if we can do that, we can literally change the world that we have. But if you have men who are only focused on money and power, and they're not focused on the people and what they need, how does any of that work? From an HR perspective, the idea is always about putting your people first so that your business reaps the benefits of that. And that's, I embody that idea and those thoughts.
Well, I just have to say, and it's so funny, as you were talking, you were reminding me of someone else that we've had on our show who just radiates love and creativity in a way for healing. And I, as the universe does, she just commented on this broadcast, Sherry Pullum, who's just said, "Thank you, Lola, for your courage and sharing your powerful story and for turning your scars into stars." Oh. And, she's someone else. You two really need to meet each other also. It's just can't believe that she commented, because I was thinking about her while you were talking.
That's how it works.
It is exactly how it works. And yes. There's so many things you said along this conversation as I was listening, but, I guess to end in this place of love, really, and healing, and that, you obviously shared both in the corporate environment and in your business with the restaurant, you shared blatant racism. And, we've talked so much on this show with women who shared, experiences that maybe, were concrete. I mean, you had an entire community, coming after, you and your husband for this, beautiful space that you were trying to create. I can't imagine, obviously, on so many levels, but I can't imagine what it took from you, to have to keep fighting to keep that goal in place that you had, of that vision of what you wanted to create for community. So I feel very grateful to you and to all those in your life, that you were able to keep that vision in mind and, bring us to this day so that, you can keep thinking about ways to integrate it, into our world, because I couldn't agree more that if we had more love,
yes,
that we could break down these constructs. But we also need to be talking about these things. I mean, you shared something early in what you said about, when you were, in young in your corporate career, and, people would say to you, "Oh, you wrote this. Oh, you speak so well." Some of the comments that you made, and as a white woman, as white women, we don't understand that because we don't experience that. We have other issues as women that we may experience, and a commonality as women that we may experience. So as white women, we don't get that always the same way that I know, and I hear from Black women that they receive it. And it's important for us to hear that and to understand that and to be able to help create a world where that doesn't happen.
And I think it really happens through deliberate conversation. And that's why I created the Salon Lola, because really and truly now, even as I hear myself say those words, if I write, everybody doesn't write beautifully. Everybody doesn't speak very well. Everybody's not able to convey their thoughts. And oftentimes what's meant as a compliment can be misconstrued as something else based on where a person is coming from, right? Based on their past hurts and all of these things. And so people of color also need to be mindful. Like somebody said something to me recently about, "Oh, don't touch my hair." She touched my hair. And my immediate response is, well, all girls love hair, right? Like, be like dolls. Like, we've been playing with dolls from the time we were little and playing with their hair. And so if a Black woman shows up and her hair is very different from the way it was last week, all the women are going to be curious about what she did to her hair. Everything's not an assault. Everything's not an insult. It is not intended to be. But I think the more we talk about these things, the closer we get to get into that place of understanding and appreciation for different cultures, because that's what diversity means. We appropriate each other's culture. We take on the things that are beautiful about other cultures. I love Indian clothes. When I wear them, Indian women stop me in the street and they don't go, "What the hell are you doing wearing my whatever?" They go, "Oh my God, Lola, you look so beautiful," right? And so I think if we can get to this place of understanding, we kind of put away those immediate responses that come from a place of pain.
Right. Well, you're, you really are a beautiful spirit. And I really just have to thank you for being so candid and sharing so much detail about your life. And, Sherry's sending us love and light. And I know that.
And we're out of time.
Yeah. Well,
and I never got the chance to talk to you about my new project. Look at that.
No, we're going to quickly get a sentence in about that. And what I say about so many of these is that I always feel like there needs to be a volume 2 and a volume 3, because there's just so much. There's so much. So quickly, give us a synopsis about your new project, and then we're going to come back to it in another space so that we can really give it the light.
Thank you. So I talked very briefly about bridging this space between altruism and profit. And so I've created the Salon Lola. We are using our stage. It's a hybrid of cultural center and restaurant. And so we want to introduce people to better versions of themselves by using the arts and thought leadership, blending the two. Neuroscience is also behind this because we want to create an immersive audience experience. So lots of creative spirits on the stage, but an engaging space for a myriad of different conversations and programming, all built around this idea of baking love into a construct.
Well, I love that. I know Sherry Pullum is watching it. I know she loves that too. And I know that's why we're going to have a separate conversation on one of these platforms and talk more about it, because we have more to do together, Lola. This is I wouldn't say the beginning, but this was just another link in the chain. And I tell you, my father was a merchant marine also.
Really?
I mean, how is that? That's not a common,
No, and I still have memories as a little girl, my dad coming home with these big cases and the way that they smelled, and getting myself in the case and all the conversations. He made a profound impact on my life, and he was really the love, the parent that really brought love into the equation and taught me what love is supposed to feel like. And I have a ton of appreciation and respect for him. Thank you, Helen.
Yes, he did a good job, because you emanate love. You really do, despite all, what you've been through. And again, I thank you so much for sharing. And you really created a great platform for me to be able to share two important projects of the YWCA. One is that on September 30th at 6 p.m. And this is a free program called "I'm Not Your Superwoman: Dismantling the Stigma Around Black Women's Mental Health." We are hosting. It's a virtual program. Anyone watching today can register. It's an intergenerational discussion about Black women and mental health. And Lola just shared, her experience, and how she was able to, work through a very difficult time. But we need to be talking about these issues more, and specifically how, Black women's mental health are, impacted, and ways that we can support. So please, the link is in the comments. If anyone would like to register, Lola, if you're free, please join us as well.
I would love to.
And also, Lola and I met through, as I, shared, a chain of fabulous women. But Shalisa McNeil, who's the one who introduced us, was part of our Women's Empowerment 360 Business Essentials program, which is a partnership with Eureka, a social platform specifically to support non-white women entrepreneurs launch their businesses. because we know that the one of the key ways to eliminate racism is to create economic parity, economic equality, and we need to do that by building up our women entrepreneurs. And Lola has shared, her experience with entrepreneurship, and I know we could talk so much more, just even in that space, and I'm sure we will, and have Lola back to do that. But any women who are watching who are interested in being part of this program, there is no charge between now and October 25th. You can sign up and be part of this platform, working very closely with a national program and our local cohort here in Northern New Jersey to be able to support your businesses, their launches, and their development. So many other great programs at the YW. You can see them all at our website. Lola, what a gift to spend some time with you today. And so happy that we had Sherry and we have Sales Row, who said how phenomenal you are. And I can't agree, more. You are such a light. And I'm so grateful that our lives have, come together in this way. And my shirt says it all. It's just a coincidence today, but you've got a friend for life in me, and I'm looking forward to us doing more together. And just the space I know where you live is really a place that the YWCA lives also. So I know that there's going to be opportunities for us in that place to work together.
So many,
personally and everywhere.
So many, because I'm also creating a space for entrepreneurial women and a fund in the business that I'm creating, the Salon Lola. So there are going to be a myriad of ways for us to come together. And you are an absolute gem and a peach. And we, again, this idea about how the universe works, right? We came together over me enabling my wonderfully sweet friend, wonderful human being, Shalisa. And we met in that space. And so everything is happening as it should. Let us not despair. It's going to be okay. Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much.
What a wonderful place to leave us off today, Lola. Big love to you.
Thank you.
Big love to all of our viewers. We wish everyone a great day, and we will see you again on YWTV shortly. Thanks, everyone. Be well.